Just want to say thank you to Federico and Durst for the food today. Appreciate that. And we're going to go ahead and start with the Department of Administration. Paul?
Thank you for your time today. I'm Paul Fernkoff, the lease administrator for the Department of Administration Office of Facilities and Property Management. My presentation is the proposed lease for the Kansas Department of Revenue driver's license office in Fort Scott, Kansas. They have been at their previous location since 2018. KDOR is currently leasing space from Bourbon County in an annex building. The county is selling this building and proposed a new office in the county courthouse. The following terms were negotiated with the county. The new office will be 800 square feet at a rate of $2.10 per square foot for a term of 10 years. This includes a 5-year renewal option at the same rate, which is at the discretion of the agency. The proposed rate is well below market rates for properties in Bourbon County. The new office will have more room for the public in the lobby area and will be better suited for staff. This office does not qualify for an energy audit due to the shared utilities in the building. The Department of Administration is supportive of this lease. I'm available to answer your questions, as is a representative from the Kansas Department of Revenue.
Thank you for that. Committee, any questions? Just a moment here for Senator. Okay, no questions. So I don't really have any questions either. So we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, we got to wait on approval of minutes. We don't have quorum. I think what we'll go ahead and do then is we'll just start with the Department of Corrections and we'll go down to the hearings. Okay. We're going to go ahead and skip Department of Corrections for the moment. We'll come back if we have Molly with Veterans.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Molly Pratt. I'm a fiscal analyst with the Legislative Research Department, and I will be presenting the capital improvement reports for the Kansas Office of Veteran Services. The Kansas Office of Veteran Services typically has a variety of capital improvement projects taking place at both the Kansas Soldiers Home, which is located on Fort Dodge, and the Kansas Veterans Home, which is located in Winfield, as well as at one or more of the 4 state veteran cemeteries located throughout the state. In fiscal year 2026, the agency submitted a revised estimate of $22.9 million, including $693,528 from the State General Fund and $20.8 million in SIBF funds and capital improvement expenditures. This includes an increase of $428,000 approximately in state general funds for rehabilitation and repair projects at the state veterans cemeteries, and an increase of $18.2 million in SIBF for various projects located throughout the state, both of which are due to unspent funds from FY 2025 that were reappropriated into fiscal year 2026. For fiscal year 2027, the agency requests $6.1 million, including $201,980 in state general funds and $5.8 million in the state institution building funds and capital improvement expenditures. This is an increase of $3.2 million above the amount previously approved by the 2025 legislature for capital improvement expenditures in fiscal year 2026. On page 2, you will find a little bit more detail on the various types of capital improvement projects that are occurring within the agency. All of these are continuing projects, as noted on the page. Item 1 concerns the new veterans home construction, which should be located in Topeka. As you all know, the 2023 legislature appropriated $17.2 million, or 35% of the total cost to construct a new veterans home. Through the end of fiscal year 2025, the agency expended approximately $3.5 million on items such as schematic designs and architectural renderings. The remaining monies for the new Northeast Veterans Home will likely be carried forward into fiscal year 2027 because the agency does not know when it will receive the matching federal funds. However, the agency has completed most of the work that it can prior to receiving the matching federal funds. And the agency has moved up in the Department of Veterans Affairs priority group since they received the state funding. They were in priority group 8 a few years ago, and they have moved up to priority group 1, though they're still toward the bottom of the list for that group. Item 2 concerns the demolition of structures at the Soldiers' Home. The 2024 legislature appropriated funding for the demolition of the junior officers' quarters and Watt Hall at the Soldiers' Home in fiscal year 2025. However, a proviso required that expenditures be made only to preserve or stabilize the structures. Due to that, the agency has been in communication with the Kansas State Historical Society regarding the transfer of the junior officers' quarters, and they've also been in communication with local organizations regarding the transfer of Watt Hall. Since it is an evolving situation, those funds were unspent at the end of fiscal year 2025 and reappropriated into fiscal year 2026. Item 3 concerns the rehabilitation and repair projects at the Kansas Soldiers' Home. Through the end of 2030, the agency has 11 projects planned. However, the list on page 3 going into page 4 discusses only the projects in fiscal year 20, or provides detail on the projects in fiscal year 2026 and 2027. Those include, I won't cover all of them, but those include remodeling the shower room and the long-term care room to better provide care for the bariatric patients at Halsey Hall. They would also like to replace the fire panels in 3 of the halls, replacing generators, roofs, HVAC replacements. They would also like to expand the pharmacy in Halsey Hall. It is a pretty small unit right now. I believe only a couple of people can be in there at one time. And they also plan to upgrade the IT infrastructure for the campus. For fiscal year 2027, the main project is to add sidewalks throughout the campus. And with that, I'll move on to item 4, which is the rehabilitation and repair projects at the Veterans Home, which is located in Winfield. The agency has 17 rehabilitation or repair projects planned through the end of fiscal year 2031, excluding emergency repairs and maintenance. Those projects include, in fiscal year 2026, upgrading the electrical infrastructure throughout the facility, replacing exterior doors on Timmerman Hall and Donlin Hall, repairing the steam line to the Hawley power plant, adding air-cooled chillers, and remodeling the Ellers Wing in Donlin Hall. For fiscal year 2027, the major project the agency has planned is remodeling the dining room and the kitchen in Bleckley Hall. The dining room and the kitchen have not been remodeled since the building was initially constructed. The agency would also like to replace the sidewalk on the facility or on the campus and add outdoor lighting for the veterans who reside at the home. And they would also like to replace flooring in one of the buildings. For the Kansas cemeteries, which is item 5 on page 5, the projects in fiscal year 2026 for rehabilitation and repair include installing a road at the Veterans Cemetery on Fort Dodge, adding a storage building also at the Veterans Cemetery on Fort Dodge. The agency currently has one, but it is pretty cramped in there, is my understanding, so they would just like to expand it or create a new one to give the grounds crew more availability or available space to work. The agency would also like to add doors on the committal shelters at the veteran cemeteries in Waukene and on Fort Dodge. They would also like to add a memorial walkway at all veteran cemeteries to help people walk through the cemeteries. And the last item includes adding a casket and in-ground or expanding the casket and in-ground cremation gardens at the Veteran Cemetery in Winfield. My understanding is that that will be paid for by a federal grant fund from the Cemeteries Association. For fiscal year 2027, the agency plans to install a restroom within the committal shelter at the Veteran Cemetery on Fort Dodge. I want to note that several of these projects have carried over from previous years into this year because the agency struggles to find contractors near Winfield and Fort Dodge and the locations for the cemeteries. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will stand open for questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Committee questions? Yes, Senator Francisco.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you can answer this or we'll need to get an answer from the veterans of the office. I'm wondering how many bariatric shower facilities are available throughout the system, and is there more than one? This is something that it would be probably good to assign people, if we could, to the same floor or the same location. If we already have, those are very expensive facilities.
Mr. Chair, my understanding, based on recollection, and I will ask the agency for more details as well, I believe that they are converting one large room into a shower room, or a bathroom into a shower room that is easily accessible for certain types of patients. I know the agency does try to put certain types of patients together to make it easy on the nurses, and you know, depending on why the veterans are there, they also try to keep them together as well. So
I appreciate that. My second question is about the storage building construction, because I'm hearing they already have storage, and want to make sure that we're doing reasonable, control of inventory before we look to build to expansion.
and Mr. Chairman, if I could add one detail, the agency is not, I don't believe the agency is here today, but the cemetery workers, they do most of they fix a lot of their own tools, and they do that inside of the current storage building, and they'll keep, things like lawnmowers and all of that there. So the agency has indicated that is getting very cramped, and the workers don't necessarily have a lot of room to work in that storage unit, and it's causing them to have to leave products outside, and those get rusted, and then they have to be replaced, sooner than otherwise. I will definitely ask the agency for more details too.
No, I appreciate the detail you were able to give us. I just thought that those were two I wanted to question.
Committee, any other questions? Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. What the fire panel replacement at Lincoln Hall, Grant Hall, and Nims Hall? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, yes. There's a fire panel replacements at
It's number 3,
okay.
the Soldier's Home.
The agency states in their 5-year capital improvement plan that the project involves replacing the outdated fire alarm systems in the buildings licensed as domiciliary buildings. The current systems are outdated, and when system failures occur or parts fail, it is becoming increasingly difficult to find replacement parts. The parts required are no longer manufactured, and the fire alarm system in the long-term care building was last upgraded in 2021.
Thank you for that information. And then on the next page in my papers here, under the Veterans Home R&R projects, you said the dining room and kitchen hadn't been renovated at Bleckley Hall since the building was built. How old is the building? How many years are we talking?
Mr. Chairman, the kitchen and dining room have not been updated since the building's original design in 1966.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee, any other questions? I might have one then, or did you have another one? Oh, okay. Yeah, 1966, familiar year. So as far as like the grants go, and excuse my ignorance on this, but so are those just like straight out grants? Do we have to match? Maybe if you could help me on that, and then the state general funds that are spent on this. Is it just because there's no other monies available, or?
Mr. Chairman, for the cemetery grants, my understanding is that those do not require a state match. It's funded by the federal government. The agency initially applied for the funds in fiscal year 2025, and the legislature approved that in 2025, but the federal government did not actually deposit the funds into the agency's account until after fiscal year 2026 began. On the construction grant for the new veterans home, on page 2, that does require the federal government to provide 65% in matching funds. The state has provided the 35%, which is why those funds keep getting reappropriated. And the SGF amount, I believe that is mainly for the cemeteries. And that's, my understanding is that there is somewhat of a limitation on SIBF funds for the cemeteries, which is why they get standard appropriation for from the SGF for the cemetery projects.
Okay, I appreciate that. Helps me understand a little bit better. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you. Okay, we're going to go back to the Department of Corrections. Nicole?
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Nicole Renscher. I'm a fiscal analyst with Legislative Research, and I'm presenting on the Kansas Department of Corrections Capital Improvement Report. So the Department of Corrections is responsible for the upkeep of 8 adult correctional facilities, a juvenile facility, and other sites across the state. Capital improvement projects are funded from state general funds, Correctional Institutions Building Fund, State Institutions Building Fund, and the Correctional Industries Fund. For fiscal year 26, the agency submits a revised estimate of $24 million, including $7.3 million SGF. This is an increase of $11 million or 84% above the amount approved, largely due to a carry forward funding from fiscal year 25 for completion of the Kansas Correctional Industries Private Industries Building at Lansing Correctional Facility. Then the remaining capital improvement projects are for rehabilitation and repair of correctional facilities. In fiscal year 27, the agency requests $58.3 million, including $46.1 million SGF. This is an increase of $45.2 million above the approved amount and includes funding for correctional facility rehab and repair, KCI private industries, and major requests such as a work release unit at Topeka Correctional Facility and bond debt service to replace the Hutchinson Correctional Facility. Turning to the next page, one of the new projects that I mentioned in fiscal year 27 is the Topeka Correctional Facility work release. So the agency requests $5.8 million SGF to repurpose a former KCI showroom into a work release unit building at the Topeka Correctional Facility. So residents who achieve minimum custody status have access to work release beds where they can gain employment in the community and begin preparing for release. Agency states that work release opportunities for the female population are limited, and those who do participate are housed with general population residents. Renovation of the former KCI showroom would provide 40 work release beds. And then we have some continuing projects. The facility rehab and repair occurs every year, so the agency uses these funds to address the system-wide rehabilitation, remodeling, renovation, and repair of the various buildings and structures at the correctional facilities. The agency uses CIBF to pay for rehab and repair of the adult facilities and SIBF to pay for rehab and repair of the juvenile correctional complex. The agency also uses SGF to help pay for projects that have been delayed due to CIBF limitations. Funds are typically appropriated to central office and then transferred to the individual facilities as projects are approved. And then the Kansas Correctional Industries, number 3, is a self-supporting program of the Department of Corrections, which provides state-operated and private industry work opportunities for residents. Capital improvement projects include the construction, equipment, maintenance, and repair of private industries building. Fiscal year 26 revised estimate includes an increase of $8.8 million above the approved amount due to a carry forward balance related to the new LCF private industries building not being completed in fiscal year 25, and TCF and Winfield Correctional Facility buildings entering the construction phase. The agency is requesting $238,500 for fiscal year 27, though KCI will evaluate revenue and funds available for potential new industrial buildings that will have been designed during the previous fiscal year. And then we have some information on some previous projects, including the Lansing Career Campus. The 2024 legislature approved funding for the construction of the Lansing Career Campus, a 45,000 square foot campus that serves as an education and workforce training center. The agency used the 20 million SGF to leverage an additional 20 million in private donations for a total cost of 40 million to construct and equip the building. And then the Lansing Museum, the agency was appropriated 490,000 SGF to perform stabilization repairs of select buildings at the old maximum security unit in Lansing. Lastly, page 5, debt service. The agency is requesting 34.5 million SGF to pay for debt service to replace the Hutchinson Correctional Facility Central Unit for fiscal year 27. The current estimate provided by the Kansas Development Finance Authority for debt service payments for a 20-year bond totals to 690.7 million SGF for principal, debt, and interest. Replacement of the central unit would be classified as phase 1, with the agency anticipating a total of 3 phases. The bonding authority for those phases would be requested in subsequent years. The agency is currently paying off a bond to develop a new information management system known as Athena to replace the agency's legacy systems that were built in the 1970s and early 2000s. The agency began paying this bond in October of 2021, and the final payment is scheduled for October of 2026. Debt service payments total 3.3 million SGF in fiscal year 26 and 1.7 million SGF in fiscal year 27. And then there's some information about previous bond debt service for construction of a new medical/support services building at TCF. The 24 legislature authorized the agency to obtain bond financing not to exceed 40.2 million plus all amount required for the cost of bond insurance and interest, with payments beginning in fiscal year 26. So funding for that debt service payment was moved to the Department of Administration by the 2025 legislature. Are there any questions?
Yes, Senator Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, excuse me, this is only my second time on this committee, so I want to understand where and if these numbers are currently in the department's budget. So take, for example, the agency requesting 34.5 million SGF to pay debt service to replace HCF for 27. Is that currently in the budget, or is that just a request at this point?
That was an enhancement request that the agency submitted for fiscal year 27. It was not included in any of the chamber's recommendations.
Okay, and so the debt payments, for example, on page 5 in for 26, those are currently in their budget.
Correct.
As we look at some of these other items, again, I'm using this as an example so that I understand future ones as well. Like number 2 on page 3, the facility rehabilitation and repair. Is that, again, an enhancement request, or is that built into their budget already?
So the facility rehab and repair is built into the agency's budget. They have 4 million SGF for priority capital improvement projects. Statute gives them around 4.9 million from the State Gaming Revenue Fund for Correctional Institutions Building Fund for the adult facilities. And then they receive an appropriation of State Institutions Building Fund. Those are built into their budget.
All right, so it sounds like when I have a question about that, I should ask, some are in the budget and some aren't in the budget.
So all of these projects are, yes, some of them are built into the budget already, part of the base request, and some of them are enhancement requests.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Committee, any other questions? Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm remembering that there is a limit to the funds available from that racing and gaming appropriation.
Yes, the 4.9 million. And then it's the division of the budget subtracts an amount given to Department of Administration for building insurance.
So, Mr. Chair, I think maybe 2 years ago, this committee made the recommendation to reallocate those funds by percentage so that, because they have been capped now for a number of years. And I'm assuming we won't be working this today. Do we have a quorum?
Yeah, we don't.
Mr. Chair, if that's the case, I would like to ask for some of that material that had been presented to the committee those years ago be available for us at our next meeting, so that we can again look at the cap on those funds and the alternative that had been suggested to change that cap.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Yes, Representative Bowsley.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. And question for the analysis. What's the correct title? What's your correct title?
A fiscal analyst.
Analyst. Thank you. Brain fart. Number 3, the KCI. Is this all private funds? It says all other funds, but where do those funds come from?
So the Kansas Correctional Industries is a self-sustaining organization from the Department of Corrections. So that is revenue. They receive revenue from like rent payments and sales of products and other things like that.
Interesting. I wouldn't mind learning a little bit more about that. But then just for the new senators, so the Appropriations Committee this morning finished our budget. So it'll be, we kicked it out. But a lot of these enhancements, as you go through this, were eliminated in a global motion from the Special Budget Committee, and then a lot of chairs, and they didn't bring those recommendations to the Appropriations Committee. So if you have a question, I would definitely not assume it's in there. Okay. Thank you.
And thanks for sharing that, because that was kind of one of my questions, is where we've kicked some of this out as well. What's actually in or not in. So thank you for that update. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you. Okay, committee, we're going to move on to the Department for Age and Disability Services.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. The document that you have before you is the capital improvement plan for KDAS, and it actually includes all 5 of the state hospitals. For this is the first time that you'll see South Central Regional Mental Health Hospital in the capital improvements report. The 4 state hospitals, the other 4, treat about 850 Kansans daily, and it's 4 campuses, including about 80 buildings, and containing approximately 1.9 million gross square feet of floor area. I'll focus on page 1 of the presentation, and then if you have any other questions, I can also dig into the specifics. For fiscal year 2026, the agency submits a revised estimate of $25.7 million in capital improvement expenditures, including $12.1 million SGF and $13.6 million from the state institutions building fund. The revised estimate includes the South Central Regional Mental Health Hospital in the amount of $12.1 million SGF, Priority 1 rehabilitation and repair projects in the amount of $3.5 million SIBF, and then reappropriations in the amount of $10.1 million SIBF. For fiscal year 2027, the agency requests $12.6 million SIBF in capital improvement expenditures, and those are related to the Priority 1 rehab and repair projects, Priority 2 rehab and repair projects, the OSH Cottonwood remodel, OSH Special Services MECO project, and the Adair Acute Care building remodel. And I'm happy to stand for questions on those projects or anything else.
Committee, any questions? Okay, I knew if I waited long enough. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if the funds to remodel the special services building in the office area, the Mico House, do we know how many additional spaces or beds would be available with that renovation?
Mr.
Senator.
Chair, yeah, there wouldn't be any additional beds with that project. That project is to repair damage from water infiltration, and it's for training and record storage. So no, an office space, no beds.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Owens.
Yeah, if I might, so I do know that with currently in the budget, obviously subject to change, number 3 is in the budget, the Adair Acute Facility is in there, and that one would increase patient rooms 15 to 45 according to this, but I understood it to be 30. And then I believe Oswattomie as well, both of those were in the budget, would create another 15 to 30 beds there as well. Is that your recollection as well, Sharday?
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, to my understanding for fiscal year 2027, the Priority 1 rehab and repair projects are in the budget because they're built into the budget. Priority 2 rehab and repair projects are not in the budget. The OSH Cottonwood remodel are not in the budget. The OSH Special Services and MECO remodel are not in the budget. The Adair Acute Care building remodel is in the Senate budget position. And then there was a governor's recommendation for the Kids State Hospital. The House has 1.5 million SIBF and the Senate has 3 million SIBF for that.
Thank you for that information. Any other questions, committee? Comments? Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go to the judicial branch. Molly?
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Molly Pratt again with the Legislative Research Department. So the judicial branch has a capital improvement, The judicial branch has a capital improvement budget funded entirely by the SGF for the Judicial Center Complex, which is located across the street. In fiscal year 2026, the agency submits a revised estimate of $625,000 in state general funds, which is an increase of $325,000 above the amount previously approved by the 2025 legislature. The revised estimate includes funding for 2 projects: the installation of an interactive learning exhibit as part of the Judicial Branch Learning Center and the reconfiguration of the garden level of the Judicial Center. For fiscal year 2027, the agency requests $300,000 in state general funds, which is the same amount as previously approved by the 2025 legislature in fiscal year 2026. And that request includes funding solely for the installation of interactive learning exhibits. On page 2, you will find a little bit more detail about the projects. Item 1 concerns the Judicial Branch Learning Center. The agency requests $325,000 for the development and construction of 1 interactive exhibit within the law library in fiscal year 2026. This adjustment is not considered a request for supplemental or enhancement funding because the judicial branch reduced anticipated contractual services expenditures for the Office of Judicial Administration by the same amount in order to fund the Interactive Learning Center project. In addition, the agency requests $300,000 in state general funds to further the creation and installation of 1 interactive learning exhibit for fiscal year 2027, and that is included as enhancement funding. I will note that both House Appropriations and Senate Ways and Means deleted the funding, the $325,000 in funding in fiscal year 2026, and neither chamber approved the funding for fiscal year 2027. Previously, the 2024 legislature appropriated $50,000 in state general funds in fiscal year 2025 for the agency to begin the process to convert a portion on the first floor of the Judicial Center into a student-focused interactive learning center. During the 2025 legislative session, the agency requested $3.7 million in state general funds to create the Interactive Learning Center, but the request was not approved. So during this past interim, the agency reduced the amount requested for the Learning Center and expanded the length of time in which it will take to complete the exhibits. The current plan is for the interactive exhibits to provide information about the history, processes, and relationships of the 3 branches of government. And under the revised capital improvement plan, the Interactive Learning Center will be implemented exhibit by exhibit until the judiciary determines that it's complete. The current 5-year plan for the judiciary extends funding through fiscal year 2031. And item 2 concerns the garden level reconfiguration. The agency requests $300,000 in state general funds for this purpose in fiscal year 2026. Previously, the agency had converted the garden level from a shared workspace into an office space for the Judicial Council and meeting space for Judicial Council committee members. The judicial branch also installed additional compact shelving and restrooms, and the funds in fiscal year 2026 will go toward additional updates to the office space and common areas, as well as updates to signage. This is the $300,000 here is included in the agency's budget in fiscal year 2026 in both House Appropriations and Senate Ways and Means as it currently stands. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer questions. I will note that there is a representative for the judicial branch in attendance who might be able to provide more detail.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Committee, any questions for Molly? Any statements? Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is probably more for a representative of the judicial branch, but there had been some suggestion that there could be some private funds raised that could match or help enhance the Learning Center appropriations, and I'm wondering if any progress has been made on that.
Mr. Chairman, I would defer to the agency for a more detailed response, but I do know that the agency is looking into donations and things like that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make sure that they were looking at that as an option.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that response. Any other questions? Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And do we know what's in the House budget, if any of these SGF requests?
Mr. Chairman, for items 1 and 2, only item 2 is included in the House Appropriations budget as it currently stands and the Senate Ways and Means budget as it currently stands.
And what was the ask reduced to on the Learning Center?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, in last session and during the 2025 legislative session, the agency had requested $3.7 million, and it dropped down to $325,000 in fiscal year 2026 and $300,000 for fiscal year 2027.
That's pretty substantial reduction. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. And with that committee, we're going to move on to the Department of Commerce. Jacob.
Hello, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jacob Klesby. I'm a fiscal analyst with KRD. And in front of you is the JCSBC report for the Kansas Department of Commerce. This document provides an overview of the capital improvement plan for the Kansas Department of Commerce. The agency's capital improvement includes maintenance for 2 of the state's 28 Kansas workforce centers. And the 2 projects outlined in this report consist of HVAC improvement and roof repair and maintenance. If you will turn to page 2 of the document, looking under new projects, this first highlights the HVAC improvement project, which is for the Topeka Workforce Center. The agency requests a total of $250,000. This is an increase of $120,000 of the amount, my apologies. This is an increase from the previous amount of here. Sorry, let me pull up the number. This is an increase of $120,000 over the amount that was approved by the 2026 legislature. That increase is reflected in the agency's budget request through the budget summary that has gone through the House Appropriations and Senate Ways and Means, with both committees approving that increase for capital improvements. This project within the Topeka Workforce Center is for the replacement and upgrade of the HVAC system, a replacement of the Ajax boiler system, overall as part of an energy efficiency initiative for the agency. Currently, all controls within the building are pneumatic and offer no options for night or weekend setback. And overall, the estimated costs for the projects are broken into $220,000 for construction, $14,000 for architect and engineering fees, and then $16,000 is allocated as part of the project contingency. If you will turn to page 3 of the report, this highlights a project in fiscal year 2027 for the Garden City Workforce Center. The agency has requested $100,000 of roof repair and maintenance, and that is included within the agency's budget request. It also has gone through House Appropriations and Senate Ways and Means. That concludes the capital improvement report for the Department of Commerce. I'm happy to stand for questions.
Committee, any questions? Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So do you know who pays for the utility bills? Is it the state or is it matched funds from the reimbursement funds for these workforce centers? Or for,
Mr. Chair, Senator, so when you're referring to the utility bills, you're referring for things such as the cost of heat, gas, electric, and such. Mr. Chair, I believe those are funds that are included as part of the state's budget. A representative from the agency, Rachel Willis, is with me in the audience. Another representative from the agency would have that information as well.
Thank you, Senator. Mike Bean with the Department of Commerce. Those, all of our utility bills and operational costs in capital improvement are paid through our rent income for those locations. Does that make sense?
yes, would you have additional funds to spend if the utility costs were lowered? And how would you use those?
Yes. And a great example is at the Topeka office at 1430 that we're talking about. It will be in need of an elevator. And if you've remodeled or purchased elevators, they're north of 300,000. So the hope is some of this cost saving and utility costs would help in the future pay for that elevator replacement.
Thank you for that.
And, just as a side note, the HVAC system, particularly the boiler, is original to the building. The building was built in early 80s, 81 approximately, so it's time.
I might follow up with a question since you're up there. If you can answer this one. So the architect engineer fee, 14,000. Is that pretty normal for just a project like that, or how's that get divided? Or
So we utilize Department of, sorry, go ahead. We utilize Department of Administration. They, through their contracted vendors, architects and engineers, that's an estimated cost, to be quite honest. Hopefully it's lower, obviously, but we're dependent on their vendors that they used, have access to.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Committee, any other questions? All right, well, thank you for that update. Appreciate it. Committee, we're going to go to the last one here on our list today, Department of Children and Families. Amanda? Oh, I didn't think you looked like Amanda. Okay, thank you.
All right, good afternoon, committee. I am not Amanda. I am Kyle, but she is otherwise busy running a different committee, so I will be filling in temporarily. We're gonna talk briefly about the Department of Children and Families. Their primary functions are out of the Topeka Service Center at 500 Southwest Van Buren, as well as the Service Center for the Northeast region. Their lease agreement currently sets aside 75 cents per square foot for a total of $64,275 annually for the Project Maintenance Reserve Fund that is responsible for capital improvements to the building. The report includes related items for the lease office space and 35 different centers, does not include the information for the lease office space and the 35 service centers. The table there provides you a snapshot of the difference. So you can see that the agency's request is increasing from 150,000 to 900,000 in the revision. That is predominantly associated with the replacement of the roof of the Topeka Service Center, which has been completed. The agency does not have any estimated submissions for fiscal year 27 at this time, but they do eventually intend to replace the parking garage floor in fiscal year 28. Moving to page 2, you can see a snapshot of the given projects that are aggregate to the requested amount. Since there's only the one service center roofing project in 26 that accounts for all 900,000. And the past projects are the fence of the Independence Center for $1795. And to provide some more light on the Topeka Service Center, that project was a previous presentation before the joint committee and was replaced given the 20 to 25 year lifetime of the roof, which had exceeded that time period. Any questions?
Committee. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So indicated this was a revised estimate of 900,000. Is that the exact amount that was paid for the roof?
Mr. Chairman, to be completely honest, having not had this agency for my budget, I do not know if that is the exact cost of the roof or not, but I will check with the analyst and get back to you on that.
Thank you. I don't need that information before our next meeting.
Any other questions, committee? Okay, well, thank you, Kyle. And Kyle, while you're up there, I was just thinking, because this was the last one. So typically, if my understanding is right, and this might help, at least me and Owens being new to this, the other two probably know, but so typically we would make the recommendations, and then these aren't reported out to the agencies. These are just kind of held to the side for reference. Am I understanding that right?
So I think for the most part, the analysts usually inform the agencies about the requests. A lot of times the agencies are present to hear the requests or tuned in to hear the requests. So for all intents and purposes, I think the general rule of thumb would be that the information at least filters to them indirectly. But in terms of the function for report outs in the House and Senate, if recommendations are made before that report out happens, they get included in the budget committee report for that agency as it's being presented for the House and Senate. In my second session here, neither of those two sessions, the timing worked out for the vast majority of recommendations from this committee to go out before the report outs for those agencies. So they're often only available after the budget has been discussed in those situations, which complicates things certainly.
Well, you answered my question and my assumption. So, yeah. Yeah. So I guess the next question would be, maybe you could help simplify this, if anybody, for anybody, the chair here, vice chair's gone, but when we do the recommendations next time we meet, because we don't have a quorum, maybe it would be helpful to know out of the ones that we're covering, what was included and what wasn't. Does that make sense?
Yes, I can certainly pass on the message for us all to make a note in our presentation what isn't included in the
Okay.
Senate and House budgets.
Is it yeah, that I think would help things on me sitting here trying to write up a bunch of stuff on all these different committees, what recommendations if they've already been approved. Exactly, right? Okay, well, thank you. And thank you, Kyle. Appreciate that. So committee, I think we're at a standstill. So we don't have a quorum. We will just we're just going to go ahead and adjourn. So committee, we are adjourned.